And we are live. Welcome, Milky Way Galaxy team. Thanks for tuning in. We're going to give it about 2 minutes to allow folks to join. And we will be right back. In the meantime, here's Sunspot 2738 and Sunspot 2739 in the colored magnetogram. That's about 8 hours of data. And give me 1 moment. I will be right back, folks. It's a countdown. It's a countdown. Wait for it. That track's called Critical Mineral, by the way. Anyway, let's get on with the space weather here. We're looking at some sunspots. 2738 is setting, and it looks like it's shrunk a little bit. And 2739 looks like it's degrading also. And my drawing skills are failing. There's a better arrow for you. Sunspot 2739. And let's look at one other view here. This is only 8 hours worth of the sun. We like to show you the most current stuff. Let's look at 304 angstroms. Zoom it out so we can see any filaments. We did see a coronal mass ejection. I didn't just put it in the title as clickbait, folks. There really was a coronal mass ejection. We'll show you in a moment. We see a lot of filamentary activity, a lot of juice coming out of that sunspot 2738. And yeah, 2739 is a beta class, but pretty small. So not a big chance of major flares there. Move on to some more data. But first, let's go to theveloshop.net and show you the bike that I'll be buying this year. It's going to just come into stock today. That's right, today. The Felt AR3, complete with Felt's own carbon wheel set, Shimano Ultegra shifting, and this is going to be a game changer. So I got to stop riding my aluminum Colnago and put it on the wall as a backup bike and a piece of art and start riding this beast instead. If you'd like to sponsor me for my cycling season, we're looking to raise $5,500 by May 1st. A tall order, but there's a lot of tall orders in this world, And if you don't try, you ain't going to succeed. Strive for perfection, folks, because if you don't, you won't even get close. Links in the description to all that stuff. And in the meantime, I'd like to congratulate Victor Campenaerts of Belgium for receiving the most coveted prize that there is in cycling to many folks, especially time trial specialists, the world 1 hour record. So nice job, Mr. Campenaerts. If you're watching, shout out. There's his world record attempt. And he was the first man to get over 55 kilometers for the 1 hour. Check it out. Fantastic. So a new world record for the 1 hour, time trial. Victor Campenaerts. Well done. And let's get back to the sun. Look at the real-time solar wind. You see a fairly high BTBZ, so there's a lot of power there, which is noted in the BT. And we're at a positive BZ, which is a good sign for earthquakes. Although we are seeing a phi angle very close to 180 degrees. This is probably a sun-earth connection, and that is definitely an earthquake risk. Solar wind density is remaining a little elevated here, around 10 protons per cubic centimeter. And we do see a solar wind speed at about 320 kilometers per second. And speaking of which, I want to go back and look at the 193 angstroms view because I want to look for coronal holes. And this is one of the better views to show them. So now I would assume that phi angle is associated with this series of coronal holes. Those have the capability of connecting with the Earth for a long period of time. And we'll be looking to see if it's kicked off any earthquakes in a moment. So let's move on to some more stuff, such as the Gong 2, so we can take a look at the magnetic environment. We did see a spike in the GOES magnetometer, a little perturbation there, and that would have been the crossing of the current sheet, which happened quite recently. This data is about 1 hour and 16 minutes old, so that probably happened about 10 hours ago. And let's put it on the last frame. And there's the current environment, as close as we can get, at least. And for you new viewers out there, the Gong 2 uses a series of ground-based magnetometers, as well as stereo A and stereo B. Next, we'll head to spaceweathernews.com, as Ben Davidson was kind enough to put all this data in the same place for us. So we see a very flatlined X-ray flux there. Actually, a recent spike. It almost looks like a baseline B flare, sort of a situation going on there. So check that out. The low energy portion has just popped up, and that actually does represent a bit of an increase in solar activity in some ways. Keep in mind that Sunspot 2739 is normal polarity, so that is not a cycle 25 sunspot. That is a cycle 24 sunspot. So we are monitoring the solar minimum to see when it's going to end, and it looks like it's going to continue for a while, folks. We're at a KP0, an average of less than 1 for the past 24 hours. So there's a cosmic ray human health alert in effect. There's spikes in the GOES magnetometer. This is the crossing of the current sheet, polarity-wise. So there's the GOES magnetometer. One of the more important things to keep track of if you're new to solar forecasting and monitoring. Let's look at the signets for once. It looks like it's been updated here. This one shows out to Mars. So it's only the inner solar system here, folks. One thing I would note that's very nice about this is It actually shows the polarity of the sun, shown in red and blue, and it also shows you the IMF polarity right here and right here, and the way it swings. So anyway, if you haven't seen that view before, it's a pretty good one, and I don't know what that does, so I'm not going to mess with it. Anyway, there's that forecast. This is going all the way out to the 25th, the 27th. There's the prediction. Keep in mind, this is a model, folks, and I would also take the moment to note that we are eagerly awaiting data from that, the Parker Solar Probe, one of my favorite spacecraft ever. How about you? Let's let that load back up. And I don't know how that happened, but that was definitely not something that was done. I think I was too impatient and I pressed back twice. All right, so there's the electron flux. We see a small dip in it there. That's something to keep an eye on today, as we're looking at an increased solar wind density. So we could experience a dip in the electron flux. Charging hazards are non-existent, and the F2 layer is looking quite normal right now. There's that. Here are your auroral forecasts. There's the northern hemisphere, and there is the forecast for the aurora australis. Let's head to spaceweather.com to see what they're saying about the 10.7 centimeter radio flux, as it has been dipping, still above average. I mean, still above forecast, but so currently showing 75 solar flux units. And for you new viewers, 10.7 centimeter radio flux is used as a proxy for sunspot number. So it's a second way to keep track of solar activity overall. 10.7 centimeter radio flux emanates from the corona, and we do look at other radio frequencies that come from deeper within the sun. Looks like Sprite season's underway, and spaceweather.com does one hell of a job covering these things. Check it out. Some freaky lightning coming out of the ionosphere, probably from hundreds of thousands of feet of altitude. Pink sprites, if you're not familiar with it. Well, they're calling these red sprites, but they come in different colors. And here's a diagram. This is what's going on up there, all the way from the thermosphere. Anyway, check out spaceweather.com. They got great information there. There's the coronal holes we were talking about, and also near-Earth asteroids are always listed. Also hot flights. And we're going to try to do another video today with our Ask a Pilot section. We're going to do it once a week. And we're going to feature some question and answer sessions generated from email correspondence between me and a real pilot. We will not divulge his name, location, or airline, as he is not a spokesman for the company. He's just a friend. So, here is the Stereo A Core 2 Space Weather Beacon. And this is the coronal mass ejection that we're talking about in the title. As I promised, I'm not clickbaiting you. And once again, to you new viewers out there, if you're not familiar with Stereo A, I'm going to show you where it is. So here's a view of the solar system. It's supposed to be a view of the solar system. Come on, son. There we go. get out of Mercury's orbit. So stereo A is located about here, stereo B located about here, and that view at the space weather beacon is looking at this kind of an angle at the sun, and the coronal mass ejection we see is coming out this sort of an angle. So yes, it is a coronal mass ejection, just facing quite the opposite direction of Earth. And let me just advance that 1 week so you see where the planets are in 7 days. This is a value-added service. Mercury is catching up with Venus, and Earth is catching up with Jupiter and Saturn. So there's that Core 2 space weather beacon. This is what we use to check and see if coronal mass ejections are headed toward the Earth. And if they are, you will see them going this way. Just like we live streamed on the equinox. How many channels are live streaming because of the equinox, folks? I don't know, maybe one. Anyway, there's stereo A. Let's move on. Here's the Enlil prediction. This is similar to the signets, but from a different agency. So we're predicting a decrease, according to this, we're predicting a decrease in the solar wind density and an increase in the speed. So that's got the characteristics of a coronal hole wind stream, albeit a weak one. And let's just take one moment to look at the X-ray imager, as we did see that increase in the X-ray flux to a higher baseline, if that makes sense. So you should see this light up a little bit here toward the end. As one or both of those sunspots have begun to emit a little more X-ray. Not really visible on that. Let's move on. Actually, let's look at the visible here also. This is similar to the intensity gram that we showed you earlier in orange. We'll just put this up while we're here. And there you can see sunspot 2738 setting and 2739 approaching the setting position. And we'll look at the LASCO C3 while we're here. And then we're going to head to solarham.net. We see a lot of interference on the LASCO C3. And we really can't see that coronal mass ejection because it's on the opposite side of the sun. So let's just head to solarham.net real quick to see the analysis of sunspot 2739. And there you have it. So it is beta. It does have two opposite fields. That versus that. And it is normal polarity, folks. Cycle 24 sunspot. So while we have seen a few plages and cycle 25 sunspots already, we are not really in cycle 25, in my opinion, yet. So at least activity is higher than expected. As we don't want a real deep solar minimum, as they are bad for our health. Let's look at the magnetosphere movies as we do daily. And we'll show all three: velocity, density, and pressure. Just let those play through. I got to turn off my tooltips, folks. I really got to turn off my tooltips. I hate the tooltips. Oh, thanks for joining Eden Scent. I don't know why I kept calling you Eden Scott the other day. My brain just stopped functioning. Didn't mean to misname you there, Eden Scent. I'm going to get to the comments in a moment and bring them up on the screen after these videos. as folks are quite interested in the magnetosphere nowadays, with things like pole shifts happening. People are actually learning the science, and for that, we thank you. So we see a very low pressure here, very weak magnetosphere, and a lot of low pressure empty space there in the ionospheric regions. So there's your pressure video, and the Earth is in a state of charge reception right now, as that magnetosphere is very, very discharged. All right, now let me bring out the chat here, as I see there are some folks in the chat, and for that we thank you. All right, we're going to move on as that loads. It's probably going to play an advertisement, and for that we thank you also. So thanks, viewers, for helping us to get the channel monetized. Please continue to help us get more viewers, as our subscriptions are stagnating. And stagnation is death, folks. Stagnation is death. We're going to keep making the videos regardless. We're going to put some of them behind a paywall. So stay tuned, as you are going to eventually see shorter clips. Small little sections with highlights and more edited videos coming out as we get more resources and hire more people to do more things and so forth. Here are your global magnetic perturbations. And we do see some perturbations despite a weak magnetosphere. Some significant perturbations. And for you new viewers out there, we've got a North Pole here and a North Pole here, and your compass will point here, and the South Pole is going like this. If you're not aware of pole excursions, please look it up. It's kind of important. And let's go to the chat. Or let's try. All right, that's going to play an ad. Let's move on to the next slide here, which is earthquakes. And we did see a 6.5. Dag. Dag, yo, dag. All right, let's bring out the chat here. Actually, I'm going to switch this to satellite because this is a very visually displeasing view. All right. This track is called Fredro, named after one of my friends. Shout out Fredro if you're watching, or if you're in hiding. All right, so thanks for joining us, Resident Alien, Eden Sent, smAsho staff. Eden Sent, did you change your name to Eden? Greg Burton, Manuela, thank you everybody for joining. You'd like to ask what is happening in the first hour around midnight Universal Time? The atmosphere rift opens up around then. Please enlighten me. Well, the F2 ionosphere layer evaporates. That's what happens. So at nighttime, let me go to spaceweathernews.com. The F2 ionosphere layer turns into the F layer. So I'll show you on the diagram here. It might help. As at nighttime, the sun stops exerting pressure on the ionosphere. And if I was able to scroll, I would be really stoked. So what happens is, in this area here, you have an F2 ionosphere layer. In this area, you have an F layer. So when you see these real discharge portions, that means that the ionosphere layer is only a single layer instead of a compressed double or triple or quadruple layer as it is here. And it actually does depict the layers. So you can see here's 9 megahertz, here's 8 megahertz, here's 7 megahertz. Those are all different frequencies representing different levels of ionospheric compression caused by the solar wind input. Good morning, Gregory Burton. Peace and love to all. Cheers. All right, let's get the earthquakes here. Well, Manuela, you realize that a solar maximum increases the strength of the magnetic field. So, you know, the solar minimum, the problem with the solar minimum is cosmic ray flux. It makes the planet colder through some really, really counterintuitive processes. All right, let's get the earthquakes here, as we don't want the stream to be super long. And what is going on? There's that 6.5 in the West Indian Antarctic Ridge. And that happened quite a long time ago yesterday. So let's go up the list here. A 4.9 in Japan. There's that 6.5. Right on the plate boundary. There have been quakes there in the past, as you can see. And that's not showing me anything. All right. So 4.3 at depth in Afghanistan. There's a 4.8 at depth in Papua New Guinea. 4.9 at depth in Papua New Guinea. A 4.5 in Indonesia at depth. So a series of deep quakes there in Oceania. Heads up, Oceania. I would be on alert. Earthquake risk right here. We have a coronal hole magnetic connection going on, and we see deep quakes. So if you're in those areas, have a plan. Be an asset instead of a liability in the event of a disaster. We also see a 5.0 in India. Another 5.0 in India in the same location. Probably the same quake. Only a few seconds apart. That's one quake, I'm sure. Here's a 4.7 in Russia. 4.6 in Japan at depth. 5.2 in the Philippines. So I would say earthquake risk is high, folks. Look at windy.com to look at your low pressure zones, as low pressure zones are a method to predict earthquakes. When you see a large quake when you see a deep quake, it portends a larger quake at the surface. And low pressure systems are associated with it. So let's first look at, got a series of lows here that are quite anomalous. These lows here are pretty jacked up, folks. Also, this is a very odd convergence here. We're looking at some serious meridional jet stream flow. And yeah, we've got some backwards moving air, as we typically see around Papua New Guinea. And a lull in activity at South America. So this low right here could cause a big quake to kick off. Or it could be the cause of a big quake kicking off. Or they could have the same cause, right? Remember, correlation is not causation, folks. So we see some anticyclones off of both coasts of the U.S., and that is helping to hold these lows in place over the south central U.S. And let's move on to other stuff, because Windy is being stupid again and trying to take control of what I'm doing, and we're not having it. So let's go to volcanodiscovery.com and look at today's volcanoes. April 19th, we see Shivaluch producing a 13,000-foot ash plume. Whoa. Opala. in Russia, producing a 45,000-foot ash plume. That's stratospheric level, folks, especially so far north. Okay. Man, I did not click on that. Let's try again. So there is the location, pretty far south on Kamchatka. Let's go back to windy and look at sulfur dioxide. Maybe we can see that thing. That is one hell of a big plume. Going to look at sulfur dioxide. Well, if it's there, I'm not seeing it. So maybe it stopped emitting now. And I don't know why keyboard shortcuts don't work on this site. And I don't know what the hell that is. Let's just move on if I can get the screen to go off full screen. Hey, thanks, Windy. Windy.com. Great mobile app, too, by the way. Anyway, that's a 45,000-foot ash plume. That is stratospheric level aerosol injection, folks. Yet another factor to make the planet colder. We also see Semeru, which is another new one on the list, in Indonesia, producing a 13,000-foot plume. So that's a volcanic uptick, folks. 7,000-foot plume at Dacono. And don't try to pole vault over Reventador as it's producing a 16,000-foot ash plume. Please support our channel on Patreon. Be our third patron. We are going to put exclusive content, and some stuff is going behind a paywall, such as these live streams eventually when we get around to setting everything up. If you'd like to send a one-time donation or set up recurring donations, head to paypal.me/smashomash. Links in the description. If you like social media, please head to minds.com/smashomash. We got a page there, and minds.com will not censor or throttle you. You can also earn cryptocurrency through your views. So check that out. We also have a Twitter account, twitter.com/smashomash. And I don't tweet. However, Smasho staff uploads all of our videos. We have started a nonprofit organization, begun the process to start one, to make any donations to our channel tax deductible by the end of the year. So please donate. And keep in mind, by New Year's Eve, we should have all the paperwork in effect. So we got the .org and we got the .com so that we can continue with our mission, which is to assist, study, and report the ongoing formation of a unified theory of physics, to raise awareness of the general public of the relationship between space weather and Earth effects, to connect and consult with media organizations to multiply our reach, to demonstrate cutting-edge proof-of-concept solutions, to publish scientific papers in a multidisciplinary manner, including sciences such as spectroscopy, chemistry, astrophysics, health, wellness, longevity, cosmology, biology, magnetohydrodynamics, geology, etc., not limited to those sciences. To assist mankind by advancing the study of predictive phenomenon in order to optimize value, reduce risk and liability, save lives and resources, and adapt, no matter what the diversity or adversity is. And last but not least, to not be ossified in our beliefs and to treat those who are with love, respect, and inclusion to the scientific discussion. Let's break out the U.S. Doppler radar, as we saw some nasty storms yesterday. Let's see what's going on now. Well, looks like Alabama, Georgia, and Tennessee are getting pummeled again today, with North Carolina going to be next on the list. So heads up, folks out there. Take a look at lightningmaps.org. If you're not familiar with it, check it out. If there's a thunderstorm in your area, head to lightningmaps.org. As we saw Indianapolis getting pummeled yesterday. Now, if you've never used this before, Marietta, Georgia, you are in the crosshairs. Now, if you use this app or this website rather, and you zoom in sufficiently, you'll actually be able to see the estimated sound waves. So this is a very useful tool, and it looks like Fayetteville And Atlanta, I think it's on the way, Atlanta. So heads up. Don't get struck by lightning, folks. And if anybody ever tells you lightning doesn't strike twice in the same place, they're wrong. Lightning absolutely strikes in the same place regularly. So don't believe the hype. Here's your water vapor map. We'll give you the full loop on this to help you understand the upper atmosphere. Yes. So there's that. Later, Eden. Have a lovely weekend. We do see a major convergence here in the Gulf of Mexico, and I can't resist zooming in on that. Check it out. Major convergence line. And we see the telltale Hall current radio frequency signals right there. See those streamers? That is the Hall effect, folks. For you new viewers, the Hall effect is a perpendicular electric current. So if you have, for instance, if you have electrical current coming in like this, and you do, you're going to see these streamers coming out of it like this. Those are called Hall currents. Those are induced at the poles. And let me just bring up the diagram here, as I know some of our viewers enjoy this. Go to the Wikipedia page for Birkeland currents. You will see how this stuff works. Whoa, BirkelandCurrent.com. The hell did I click on? All right. Here's a diagram we're talking about, folks. And this is super important as to how your weather forms. So we see these field-aligned currents coming in here. Charge goes in, charge goes out. Peterson currents work to equalize these up here by the pole, and then Hall currents spill out in a perpendicular fashion. And those are the parallel lines you see in the sky. They're not chemtrails, because commercial aircraft aren't spraying anything. Actually, look at that great. Wow, that's a fantastic. Oh, created in the lab by Christian Birkeland. So, anyway, that's the Hall effect. I hope that helps you get Earth weather a little better. I also want to look in the middle of this anticyclonic system over Texas and Oklahoma and Arkansas. As the NASA GOES water vapor map can show some pretty interesting stuff. So we see some moist air kind of held in place by this wannabe anticyclone here. It's really not an anticyclone. It can't decide which way it's going to rotate. And let's move on. If you enjoy the music, you can find some of it at SoundCloud and some of it at SoundClick. The SoundCloud page is soundcloud.com/Daniel-Nigro-2. Links in the description below this video. SoundClick is actually soundclick.com/Golden Cat Productions. A record label. That will take you to the same page. And a bunch of songs. I think 15 songs are available for streaming, or MP3 purchase at 99 cents. Here's a video, and I have no idea what it is, so I'm not going to let it play. If you're on Facebook, check us out at facebook.com/smAshomash. And please share on your social media, as we're not even at 1,400 subscribers. Let's look at some more value-added material here in the form of cnbc.com/markets. Where am I? Where did I go? There we are. So we're going to look at the Dow, to see what the past week was like. There's the Dow at very high levels, surprisingly high levels, considering the strain on the food supply on a global basis. Is anything priced into the NASDAQ? Well, certainly not. There are a lot of really, really, really overvalued tech stocks, folks. Let's check and see if we're seeing a spike in things like silver, and we are not. It is still below 15 bucks an ounce. Now, this channel called the low, and I'm not giving you investment advice, as I'm not licensed to do so. I'm just showing you some data. For me, silver at 15 bucks an ounce is a strong buy. In the 2009 financial crisis, that went up to 50 bucks. Here's gold. And if you're not familiar with what happened in the 2009 financial crisis with gold, it went up to $1,800 an ounce. So food problems are not priced in. I did see an article about the African swine flu outbreak in China, but it's pretty hush-hush. Let's look at oil prices, as that is another very, very important indicator. As we heard yesterday, gas prices had risen in California. There's your oil prices, looking pretty average. And let's just show you what happened to oil prices during the 2009 financial crisis. They went up to 140 bucks a barrel or so. So a little bit of information about commodities there, folks. And let's just look at wheat to see if any of the crop losses in the US are priced in, and they are clearly not priced in. Here's the all data graph. And back then, wheat prices really never spiked. So kind of surprising. And I think there's a lot of ostriching going on right now. There are a lot of heads in the sand, not understanding what's going on. Now, I did notice on the homepage, there was an article about a viral outbreak in China, which was covered extensively by Adapt 2030. And for that, Mr. Devine, we thank you. A viral outbreak in China might make dinner more expensive for everybody, and they mean everybody on the whole planet. China consumes a lot of pork, and they're in the process of killing off millions of pigs because of this swine flu outbreak. It's horrifying and depressing. If you weren't aware, now you're aware. Also, please watch Adapt 2030, as he's covering this stuff in a highly uncensored fashion. And since Mr. Devine lives in Taiwan, he has, shall we say, direct insight into this stuff. Here's a transient analysis for Cygnus X3, a massive X-ray binary located in the constellation Cygnus. The tail of the swan, the star Deneb, the brightest single object visible to the naked eye alone. Why are we caring? Well, because look at the transients. See that? That's not normal. this thing goes into a dormant state before its activity kicks up. And I would note that the highest activity on the whole graph was in 2009. You think that's a coincidence? So you can see here, in the past 2 weeks, this thing went into a completely dormant state where it produced 0 transients for about 10 days. And then it went back into activity. If you look at these graphs over here, Cygnus X3, one of the most predictable and consistent cosmic ray sources in the entire galaxy. This thing is able to send signets, aka protons and other physical material, right through your head. Here's another one. Let's look at a, quote, black hole, end quote. Now, Cygnus X1 is the, quote, black hole, end quote, that was famously bet on by Carl Sagan and Stephen Hawking. And this is the first object widely accepted as a, quote, black hole, end quote. And the reason I keep saying quote is because black holes aren't real. They're math in search of observations. So something's going on in the constellation Cygnus, folks, because you can see a dormant phase for X1 also. It is pretty close in the same spot of the sky as Cygnus. And we know there's a cosmic ray point source in the constellation Cygnus. Some of us are quite sure that it is X3, aka Deneb, which is powerful enough that it could affect these other sources. I hope that makes sense. I don't want to get into it too in depth because we're into some serious cosmology stuff here, folks. I don't know what I'm trying to look at. We are back to the sun, which means we are closing out this stream. We're going to show you a little more data here as some more amassed while I was making the video. So let's do my favorite, 171 angstroms. And I will reopen the chat and then exit this live stream as if I had robbed a bank. Thanks again for tuning in, folks. I do appreciate the chat and the viewership. Thank you, donors, especially. And thanks, folks who are learning about things like the sun and cosmology. Yes, Captain Anthony, I was blasting Rush Cygnus X1 yesterday. I had 2 different Rush sound fields. I had 2112 was playing upstairs, and Live at Rio was playing downstairs. So that was a little bit of a birthday treat to myself. All right, we are out of here. Have a delightful weekend. We'll be doing it all again later this afternoon, I'm hoping. We got to do the Ask a Pilot section because there's some interesting and amusing information in there. Also, I'd like to thank the Milky Way Galaxy team. Milky Way Galaxy team for the win. Yes. Nice job, folks. Nice job. May all your battles be well-chosen victories. All right. Well, it's about that time. So thanks again for tuning in. Please don't forget to like and subscribe if you haven't already done so. Share on your social media. Maybe get us to 1,400 subscribers one of these days. When you're staring at the sun, don't drink. And if you drink, don't drive. And since it'll never be now again, may the solar wind be at your back and the atherosclerosis absent from your veins.